Okay. Welcome everybody. I just had an epiphany while I was listening to the Yoga Nidra, because I keep trying to connect the practice of Yoga Nidra, which is something that one can do, with the great mysteries and wisdom of life, particularly in the teachings of the Buddha and teachings of Christianity. So that would be the Buddha and Jesus. You know, how do the teachings of these two come together in Yoga Nidra? Now that's an interesting connection, to see if we can do that. Because if you can't do it, well then nothing really means anything unless you can get the big picture. Otherwise, we're just dealing with squares on the quilt. We never see the whole quilt. You know, everyone sees the square they like, but there's no relationship to the whole truth. You know, so we pick out a square we like, and then we relate it to some story we have about it, but we never get out of me. We're still trapped in me. So anyway, let me share. I'm going to go somewhere today that I haven't gone before. It's going to be like Star Trek. So I hope you understand the context we're working in. So anyway, let me see. One day last week, my neighbor came over, the sister of Errol, and she brought her granddaughter, who's a young lady. She's in college, young lady, and she's been struggling with heroin addiction. And her Janet, my neighbor, has been the fairy godmother. You know, the mother. You know, says you're a pain. You know, you're a problem to me. That kind. You know, your addiction is a problem. That kind of way. So, but the grandmother has been borrowed $10,000 so she could go to rehab. You know. That kind of sacrificial love. So anyway, and her name is Eden. And so Janet brought her over to meet us, and so we met in the office and the rest. So then we went in the kitchen to talk, and I stayed at my computer. And so my wife called me in and said, "Dad, come here a minute." So I said, "Yeah," and so I went in, and so I really got to look at Eden. And really attractive young lady, had a big swash of purple hair and big tattoos, you know. And so I said, "Oh, that's an interesting tattoo. It was a dream catcher with roses." And but Tilly said, "I wanted to ask you about this little necklace she has. That it's a piece of jade about Kuan Yin." Well, I have not yet met anybody in my travels who knew who Kuan Yin was. So this is Kuan Yin on this little jade that a friend of mine found buried behind a Tibetan monastery at the edge of Tibet. She'd been in China. She went to the edge of Tibet to a big monastery there beneath a mountain, and she stayed there for 2 or 3 days. And she was out at the outhouse because they didn't have any plumbing. And she looked down in the dirt and she saw this and pulled it out. And it was a little jade carving what I thought was the Buddha. And I know it's authentic because it doesn't have made in China or Mexico. So who knows how old this thing is? You know, who lost it? Where did it come from? She gave it to me. So when my uncle died, I inherited his stuff, one of which was a rosary from his wife, who was a Catholic, Italian Catholic. So I had this beautiful rosary. So I clipped off the cross and put the jade. You know, so I went to an import house to see what she thought about it, and the import lady said, "No, that's not the Buddha, it's Kuan Yin." Kuan Yin. So who is Kuan Yin? Now that began a search for Kuan Yin. Well, Kuan Yin is a Chinese deity, or bodhisattva of compassion. Kuan Yin comes from, migrated from India when Buddhism came from India into China. The representations of the gods in India are very metaphysical and abstract. I mean, the gods might have 1,000 arms and 2 heads, and the images tell the philosophy and the story of the gods. So you don't have to read in India to understand the spiritual message, because it's in the deities. This is a nonverbal communication of spiritual truth. So we don't understand that in the West. But anyway, so when Avalokiteshvara, now Avalokiteshvara, don't ask me to spell it, was the bodhisattva of compassion in Buddhism. So there's 3 bodhisattvas, Manjira, who's the bodhisattva of wisdom, and Avalokiteshvara, who is the bodhisattva of compassion. Now, bodhisattva, bodhi means wisdom, and sattva means being. So bodhisattva is a combination of knowing and being, which is the same meaning as Satchitananda. We talked about that. Knowing and being. Bliss, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Being, knowing, and bliss. So bodhisattva means knowing and being, but the Avalokiteshvara is the personification of the principle of compassion. So when the Avalokiteshvara, who in the Indian mythology sits on a lotus up in the Himalayas with 4 arms and all kinds of abstract imaging, got to China, all of the gods that came out of India, Buddhism, that went to China, become personalized in human form, because the Chinese are very practical. They don't have an abstract mind like the Hindu. So it's very much, all their paintings and everything are human beings, kind of like the Greeks. The Greeks didn't have abstract gods. I mean, all their gods looked like people. So anyway, this is a little statue of Kuan Yin. And there's several different ones. One of them I have a bigger one, which is too big to carry, which is her sitting in a chair with her arm on her leg, very much like a female form. So when I became interested in Kuan Yin, I met on the internet a really spiritual lady who lives up near Charlottesville, and I've forgotten her name. I can't even remember. You can, it's a funny thing. You get somebody, you put it in your contact box, but if you don't know the person's name, you can't go retrieve it. So it's buried there. I never learned to use keywords. So anyway, we did strike up a resonance together, and she told me about this pearl that her sister, who lives in New Zealand, gave her. And her sister is a really, really high up wisdom lady. Really, I don't know if she lives at the edge of Mount Olympus somewhere. I don't know. But anyway, she had this pearl. Now, this little pearl, this little teardrop pearl, about the size of your little finger, was emanated by a statue of Kuan Yin in Indonesia somewhere, in an ashram protected by nuns. And during the night, the statue will create these little pearls, and people who come there with a wish will get a little pearl, and the little pearl is wrapped in a little wire cage with a string around it, so you can hang it on your neck. So I was just really, and my friend had pictures of her pearl on her little statues in her meditation room, and a picture of the statue in Indonesia somewhere with the pearls coming out of the statue. Now, you don't have to believe that or not. I don't, that's just there. However, the pearl, so anyway, I was, when I became interested in Kuan Yin, since I was wearing her around my neck, I became very interested, and I discovered the Heart Sutra, and the chant of the Heart Sutra, which I've played on here. And I don't know if some of you may have it, some of you may not. I don't know if you have this. Did I ever give this to you, the Heart Sutra? It's a chant that is done in Zen monasteries. It's the chant of, it's the whole teaching of the Buddhist wisdom in this chant as understood in the tradition of Zen. So it's chanted in Zen monasteries. I mean, that's part of the ritual. So I discovered this chant, and I was listening to it when I first discovered it because I was, really interested in the Kuan Yin. And a very unusual thing happened in that my heart began to squeeze with this exquisite mix of joy and sorrow. Most of us think in terms of joy, home, and most of it in separate on sorrow. But what does it feel like if you put them together? Well, it feels like life. In other words, I wanted it, it was like, oh, please stop, but never stop. Because it completely brought me into the present moment in such a way that an invisible hand was squeezing the heart of life itself. So my heart was the heart of life, not just my little heart, but it was the heart of all life. And that's where Buddha comes in and says all life is suffering. So that I finally understood what, all life is suffering because all life dies. We're all dying. We start dying the moment we're born. So that everything we hold dear, we lose. Everything goes through the fingers. So that is the sorrow of life. So how do you find the joy in it? That's our quest. Okay, so that went on for about for the whole length of the song, the chant, which is not that long. And it recreated itself a few days later when a man came into my studio to get prints of his wife who had killed herself, committed suicide, and because she had Alzheimer's, or feared she had it. And he was a military man who was very judgmental and distant, and he never really, and he felt so guilty because now she was gone and he had no way to, he had so many regrets. So he just wanted to have these pictures, and he was going to plaster them all over his house, like a shrine, So he had so much pain because he was, and so my heart, so when he left, darn if that Kuan Yin heart came back, and that was just squeezing in feeling his pain. I think it happened once more with another person who came in, who was all been over with age and pain, and he had, I just going to get these pictures in my album, family pictures made, because I'm not going to be here much longer. And so he was really the pain of old age and sickness and death. That pain and that squeezing came back. And that was the last time Kuan Yin visited me, that dramatic form. So anyway, so then I remember writing to my friend and saying, is there any way I can get a pearl of Kuan Yin? Maybe from your sister or something, So the next thing I know, she had sent me her pearl, along with the picture of her pearl on the around her meditation deity, and the picture of the pearls being created by the statue. So I had it around Kuan Yin. So it was hooked right in a little hand here on the table, So that was so valuable to me, And so anyway, I'm called into the kitchen, and here's Eden sitting there, an attractive young girl who was in this tremendous pain of her heroin addiction. Being caught, the heroin calls her back. Oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. But I know I can't stay. No, I'll eventually give in. The call of the drug, the addiction. So there was so much pain there. So anyway, I looked at her little necklace and oh yes, that's Kuan Yin and all that. And I told her a little story about Kuan Yin. And then I looked at her thing, and dream catcher on her arm. I just had to give her something. So I went back in my room and I thought there's a dream catcher here. But I know I got a dream catcher. I couldn't find it. So then I'll give her some little Buddha flags that I get from the Dalai Lama for a donation. And get these Buddha flags, some paper thing. I'll give her that. Well, I didn't think. So I just turned and grabbed the pearl and took it in. I took Kuan Yin on the pearl, took this in, and I said, "Here, I'm giving you this." And took it off and put it on her necklace. And I didn't know I was going to do that. And certainly she didn't know what was going on, because a stranger comes in and gives her his most precious pearl. You know, and I said that one day you're going to be a healer because of all the pain you're suffering. You know, all the pain you're experiencing. One day you'll be a healer. And so, anyway, the grandmother was very appreciative and came back the next day, just couldn't believe what had happened. And so she went on, so I don't know. I have no idea what will happen. I have no idea if it makes an effect on her or not, or whatever. But it made me, what I reflect on it, was that we're not free unless we can give away the most valuable thing we have. And usually it has to come spontaneously. It can't come like, oh, I got to give away something valuable. What do I got? And what can I give it to that? Whom can I give it to in order so I can be liberated? It doesn't work like that. So the giving away of something valuable happens spontaneously without any premonition or expectation or script or anything. So it's a completely unscripted moment. So I wrote this up here, the Tears of Kuan Yin. And then, the last couple of weeks, and personally I've been trying to understand what the meaning of the blood of Jesus is. I'm still working on that. Because, as you know, the way I evolve my consciousness, or I evolve the practice, is that I become interested in something in a book or something. I become, and so I start out, it's kind of like the detective in the British mystery, that like a bulldog keeps looking for the clues. The detective, the master detective, never gives up by prematurely judging who did it. See, so they never know who did it until they follow the trail right to the doorstep of the murderer with proof. And then the whole thing blows open, and they either deny it or confess. But the whole picture, all the sad tale, you see, all the interconnections, all of the people involved, and all the cover-ups, and all the hidden, and all the nastiness, everything comes out. You see that, then order is restored. But anyway, so the idea with the British detective, the master detective, is that you follow the trail. So I kind of like that. I've been following the trail of the blood of Jesus, because it gets thrown around a lot. I have a lot of evangelical friends on my Facebook, and they will always come up with the blood of Jesus will save you, and the blood of Jesus, all that. Well, what does that mean? They too, well, you just got to believe in Jesus, and by believing in Jesus, you just got to go to church. It's kind of like you join the church, and you say, I believe in Jesus, and that's it. But all you really get is just a membership in the social organization. There's no, you don't encounter your life. You don't encounter the blood of your life. So what is the blood? So I got to thinking about, blood is a metaphor. Because I was getting a physical the other day, and take a blood sampling, and I'm sitting there in the blood room, and I always make crack jokes when I go there, and I say, you ought to splatter some red paint on the wall. Or on Halloween, put on some vampire teeth or something, She laughs. Do any people faint? She said, oh. So, so the sight of blood creates a with pullback. So you see blood on the floor, pullback. It's always the crime scene. There's blood, Who did, somebody died. But at the same time, you want to keep your blood because it means you're alive. You don't want to, so blood is a sign of life and death. So it's an ambiguous symbol that is very visceral. This red blood on the snow, this whole idea of the blood, of the sacrifice. So blood is associated with sacrifice. I've always felt like the male barbecuing the steak at the altar in the backyard is the last remnant of the ancient priest cutting up the sacrificial lamb or bull and serving it to the people. So they don't do it now. It used to be the man, when he would barbecue, put on a white hat. So it was a special role, and we like the meat rare so we can see the blood. It was a fresh sacrifice. You see, and the bull was always the sacrificial animal in all the religions. So the bull is the beef. So you eat that beef, which is the sacrificial bull. So you start connecting these dots, and then you got Christ, who is the sacrificial lamb, and then you got the blood of Jesus, which is served at the altar with wine, which is the blood. You drink the blood of Jesus. So all of these connections are kind of like, running around there, where the primitive societies drank actual blood. I mean, you go to the Aboriginal societies, and they would, all the sacrifices include blood, either an animal or either killing somebody in another tribe. In the New Guinea headhunters, that if you're going to get a male's going to get married, he had to go get the head of some enemy tribe to get married. There was another sacrifice, just Campbell tells me a lot about these. There was another sacrifice in New Guinea where it was a rite of passage, and they would have a trench with all these logs piled on top, and they would have a young female who would lie down, and the boys that were being initiated would all come and make love to her, and then the last couple, they would drop the logs on them and crush them, and then they would cook the flesh and eat it, pass it around. So these are really bloody, bloody hell, the British say bloody hell, sacrifices that primitive man used to do. Of course, then as we evolved, we substituted non-human representatives, so then that fits into our mythology and our symbolism and our religions and everything, but they all have roots in the blood.
I guess this is trivial, but the idea that you take blood from an animal or whatever and drink the blood, if I were to pass the cask of blood around to people, in a few minutes it would form a clot. You wouldn't be able to drink it. I mean, you'd have plasma.
Look at the Maasai in Africa, who are cattle herders, and they live on the blood of the cows. But it was part of their diet. Yeah.
I mean, it would be a matter of chewing the blood rather than.
Who knows? But I mean, people, but the one point is that when there's a sacrifice, the sacrifice is something that is an animal that was once just an animal. When it's selected to be a sacrificial animal, it becomes divine. So it becomes a sacred animal. They usually dress it up, king for a day, they dress it up and treat it, and then it goes to the sacrifice, and then it's dismembered and given to the community as a ritual participation in the renewal of life. So these primitive ideas from the planting societies, which were not the hunting societies, but the planting societies, which lived in a vegetative world where you had to live off plants and you began to cultivate plants, grow wheat and all that. The planting mythologies, the planting societies were very much in tune with the cycle of death and life. The moon dies and rises, the tides coming in, the plants die, and new plants come out of the ashes, the phoenix bird dying in the fire and coming out. So this whole idea of death and life coming out of death was very much evident in the primitive mind in trying to get in alignment with the universe. The whole point is, with us included, is that we want to get in alignment with something larger than just me. Otherwise, I have no place. So we're always looking for presidential elections. I'll get in alignment with Trump. He makes me feel like I got a place. Or I get in alignment with Sanders. Or I get in alignment with Hillary. So each one, by my investing in that center, gives me a sense of place in the world, and meaning, and progress, and power, and all of that, you see. So all of these are social ways of getting in alignment. Christianity, to get in alignment with the church, which means to get in alignment with your social institution, which might be the particular church you go to in your neighborhood. And each one might have a little different twist on alignment. Well, you got this doctrine, and we don't do that here. You know, we do this, you see. So we're in alignment with God, and they're not too bad over there. So this whole idea of the covenant with God that comes out of the Bible is being in alignment with the cosmos and the energies and the rhythms of the cosmos. So the dying and resurrected God is always associated with the goddess, the Earth Mother, because the Earth dies and resurrected. So her son, in all of the mystery religions of the Middle East, and in ancient help in Greece and everything, was the mystery rite of the dying and resurrected son of the mother. So Catholicism, when it became the Holy Roman Church, just adopted these ancient themes. And so you have the dying and resurrected Son of God, who is born of Mary. Now, she's a human, but she is also a God, because she is a virgin. A virgin birth means that in several different levels, but all the mythologies, there's a virgin birth, which means in the baser level is that Zeus came down and impregnated a human and has a god. With the Greek myths go. But the meaning, the metaphorical meaning, can go up to be virgin. Just means you're having an empty or pure mind, which allows you to have an inception of insight, because you're not holding anything. So that whole. But anyway, the whole association here is that Jesus is associated with the dying and resurrected Son of Mary, who apparently had a love affair with God, because she conceived a child, you see, by the Holy Spirit. So that, you get into this ancient mythology there. But the whole point is that somebody's dying and somebody is resurrected. And if you participate in that, well, then you will experience death and resurrection. The way Christianity frames it, unfortunately, is that the resurrection happens after your physical death. The teachings of the Buddha is, no, it happens now. And so this is a teaching of timelessness and not time. The teaching in time is that you get salvation in the future if you do everything right now. The timeless teaching is that you get salvation right now if you understand how the mind operates. See, so salvation is awakening to the actual blood and death of life. Life is death and life together, not separate. Anyway, I'm running on. All right, so but let's jump back over to Yoga Nidra, and I wrote down what he said in that little exercise this morning. First of all, he says, I want you're going to go to or reach or experience or move to a timeless presence. So the timeless presence is life right now. It's not like I got to get to the timeless presence down the road. Timeless means no time. So timeless means now. And we're always now. So presence is always now, but we miss it because we're thinking in time. I got to do something to get to it. So Yoga Nidra is always pointing to the timeless now. The next thing he says, give your body up. And we tell, become aware with bare attention of the sensations in your body. So you're going to Walmart, and you, instead of thinking about, oh, this is, look at all these fat people, or I don't know, that person, look at that person beat the kid, you know, whatever you, or I got to get home, or they don't have what I want, you know, all this complaining and drudgery and boredom. I got to get back to my TV show or something, I don't know, all of this wanting to be in time, being in a better place. If we practice timeless presence, then we just become aware of the body sensations of walking in Walmart. And I feel the energy in my feet, I feel the wind, the breeze on my arms, I feel my breath, I feel my skin, I feel maybe a little breeze of air conditioning. And you see everything without selecting anything out to criticize it. So your awareness just becomes open, and you're not, your mind is not focusing on this and that, or focusing on thinking about it could be better, or I got, you know, whatever thoughts doing. It's always in time. So you practice dropping into the timeless presence. So then he says, give your body up. Well, giving your body up, when he says, find the sense of heaviness, find the sense of feeling of lightness, go back to the other, go back. You're giving up your sense of my body, and you're just sensing feelings, bare feelings. Not, I've got a feeling, but just the sensation. Just the sensation, not the thinking about it, but just feeling the sensation. Because when you just feel the sensation, there's nobody there thinking about it. If I'm thinking about my toe and how it feels, I'm separate from the toe. I'm thinking about toe. And toe is just a thought. I don't even hang out with the sensation of it. You see, I rush right over, I'm in the thought. So if I practice giving up the thought about my toe and just feel the sensation on my toe, we'll notice that there's nobody feeling anything, there's just the sensation. So when there's just the sensation, you are in timeless presence. So when I gave the little girl the pearl of Kuan Yin, there was no thinking about, oh man, am I something special? Or I wonder what she's going to do with this. I'll bet she didn't expect that. You know, and oh shit, we're going to get another one now that I've given this one. You know, there was none of that. It was just a moment that had no meaning outside of itself. In other words, see what I mean? This is important. When I look back at that, there was just the opening up of the presence with the girl and the heartfelt yearning to give her this and be done with it. I don't know whether she might throw it in the trash. I don't know. You know, there's no reference to what it means.
Does it bother you that you give it to her, that you don't have it anymore?
No.
Would you give the Kuan Yin?
Well, I told her I wouldn't give her that. But somebody else might, I don't know. You see, somebody else may come. Now, I didn't just, you just don't walk, it wasn't like you just walk up to somebody and say, you want my pearl? You know, it just, you know, it did me. And I'm not telling you this in order to get credit, or, but I'm telling you this to fit it into the overall understanding of what it means by timeless presence and what happens, what's it like when you drop into that. And why can't we drop into it more? You see? Yeah.
To me, when that happens, that's kind of like following your bliss. I think we tend to think of following your bliss as getting the right education or the right job or that kind of thing. But to me, is that Does that ring right with you? You know, following my bliss is
Yes,
following
except,
that
yes,
inner thing.
yeah, okay, there's two levels to that. So you could say I was following my bliss, but I was not aware I was doing it, nor did I have any intention of doing it.
Exactly.
Nor was it my practice, where I'm going to follow my bliss, or whatever. The bliss found me.
Right, exactly.
So then you could look back and say, well, yeah, I was following my bliss, but what does that mean? You see, it doesn't, because I wasn't doing anything. But the point I want to make here is that when we drop into the timeless presence, there is no meaning. Meaning does not come as a reference to something we know. For instance, now you came in today and you said, well, we have an omen today. Something's going to happen because I went to 3 places and they were all empty. I went to Hardee's, they had no coffee. I went to Panero's, they had no whatever. Denny's, and I went to 3 places and they were all empty of what I wanted. So that means, right? Then you jumped. You see, then you jump. We all do this, and this is not our fault. We all do this. What does that? It must mean something.
You and I are the only ones here.
Yeah. What does it mean? Like nobody's going to show up. Or maybe something's going to happen in my life that I will get something I want. Or, whatever. But that is a reference. See, there's 2 ways to look at it. You can look at it, and we all do this, and both ways are okay. One way is to look at it, what does it mean? Well, then I'm going to run around and think it's going to mean this or that. Everyone could say it means something different. Right? So that refers the meaning to something else. The Dharma way is that it's just this. There's no meaning in it. It's just this. So when I give the pearl of Kuan Yin to the girl, the way I encounter this and understand it, and the way I hold it now, is that there was no meaning in it. It was full of meaning, but the meaning was in the moment and not in my referencing it to my ego or how great I'm going to be, or this must mean that I'm divine, or God knows, or Kuan Yin came and worked through me, and and all of this stuff, you see, because that's referring it to something else, which is my ego, which enhances my sense of self. So if you don't enhance your sense of self, you're giving it up. So what is it that's most valuable that we have to give up? It's our sense of self, our sense of me. But you can't give it up in order to be valuable. See the paradox? You can't give up yourself in order to get some kind of credit or freedom or liberation or health or whatever you would like. You say you can't do that because it's still referencing what you want, you see. So when you really give it up, it's going to happen spontaneously, and you will not be able to know when it's going to happen. So the world will align, conditions will come, and you'll find yourself in a situation where you give your pearl of Kuan Yin to that person. Yeah.
I've had this experience a number of times, and I, even now I hesitate to talk about it. But for example, if I do something really, like somebody's out on the interstate and their car's broken down at 3 in the morning, and I stop and I give them a ride home, 75 miles away. If I do that, my feeling is that I should do that, not expecting any thanks, and don't tell anybody about it after the fact. And I felt like if I did tell somebody about it, I'd take all the value away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you really do. And that's why I hesitated about telling you about this, because but I'm using the experience as a teaching metaphor rather than tooting my horn.
Yeah, it also acts as an inspiration to others.
What?
It also acts as an inspiration to others.
Yeah, but I will say that my conscience hits me every once in a while because I think, geez, I wish just once somebody would notice that I did something.
Yeah. You notice it, that's all that matters.
Yes, it should
Well,
be.
too. We see there again. See, we want to make it meaningful. Like if somebody dies, Okay, so then we want to make that death meaningful. Now, how do we make that death meaningful? Well, we have to refer it to something meaningful, which is in the past, or something in the society, or he died for freedom, or he said, there's no meaning in death. You know, I mean, there's, you know, death is death. So if we go to death, well, let's continue on here. So the first thing he said, give your body up. Okay, so giving your body up in the context of the Yoga Nidra meditation was giving your thinking of your body, your mind idea of body, up to the actual sensation of your body. And that's not an easy thing to do. So it's a practice. But it needs to be done all the time. You really have to have the instinct, well, I'm washing dishes. You know, do I feel the water? Do I smell anything? Am I hearing the sounds of the water? Does it make me want to pee? Which is usually what happens. So, but this whole idea of bringing the practice into our everyday life, you see, if you just do it on Sunday or on Tuesday, forget about it. You know, I mean, it's fun, entertaining, but you know, it would take 20 lifetimes of Tuesdays in order to get any movement. So you have to, you know, let the practice flow into. That's why what's the beauty about retirement is you're not so attached to the world and the duties of the world and the rush hour and the money and the whole thing. We have a little bit of leisure, a little bit of space, you know, in which to practice the timeless presence. And we really have a lot of incentive because death is closer and death is timeless presence. So why wait until death comes and snatches us up screaming and hollering and yelling? Why not meet death before death? Which doesn't mean go shooting yourself, but I mean the giving up, the letting go is death. You know, and that happens in little things like giving your sucker to a kid, you know, or giving your whatever you hold valuable to somebody spontaneously. It just happens, you know. If you program yourself to do it, well, then you become a hypocrite in that sense. Well, I'm such a good person, I give away my stuff. Who can I give something to now? You know, that kind of thing. All right, so then the next one he said was feel both the feelings. You feel the warm, feel the cool. And that is a way of detaching the feeling from thinking. So that little practice of putting them both together detaches you from your thinking about the cool and the warm. And then when you put it together, then he says, well, you can't do it with your mind because the mind can only think of one thing at a time. The mind can't put these two together, like an eraser, statue. Eraser, statue, put them both together. They just don't go. You see. So you have to let go in order to not be conscious of them both together, but to sense the unity of the mind. You know, that is not thinking about putting them together. So then he says, then let go of the mind. So you realize I can't put it together with the mind, so then you let go of the mind. So now what's most valuable, you see, is my mind. So all of this is letting go of what's most valuable. My body, I let that go. My mind, which includes me. There's no mind without me, you see. There's no mind without me aware, you see. So I am mind, and we're all mind. We're all the same mind, actually. Just from different viewpoints, but then we let go of that, you see. And then he says, da-da, give up thinking. That's most valuable, I'll give that up. And then he says, give up memory. Well, giving up memory means giving up the reference to the moment. You see, because if I want to know what the meaning of this moment is, I'm going to have to go dig around in my own landfill of memory, which includes everything I know and everything that society knows. I mean, we've got all the collective knowledge. We may not know it, but I mean, in other words, we've got in our memory all that we've learned and all that humanity has learned. What's real and what isn't, the whole thing is in the memory. So if I'm going to know what this moment means, and I refer to my memory, you see, I am still not in the timeless presence. Because memory's in time. Memory's in the past. Oh, I learned this, it means that, it's yesterday, you know that. And I refer the timeless moment to something in time. So I hope we can debate what we're kind of like working is just kind of get a sense for this, you know, just a sense for it. It's very hard to intellectually grab it all together, but if you just, what we're working at is just getting a sense of the direction this moves us out of the brainwashing that we've been culturalized seated with this. So this whole little thing here, it slips by very easily, but to get into the timeless presence, you have to give your body up, you have to give your mind up, you have to give your thinking up, you have to give up your memory. And that's scary, because what goes with this package, you see, is me. See, now, me, and you can check this out, don't just listen to this. I mean, this is something that you can experience maybe right now. But it's really easy to experience when something or somebody irritates you, or somebody rubs you the wrong way, or the telemarketer calls when you're talking to somebody. That's an easy ring, telephone market call. So if you are aware of your mind, you will notice that your sense of self rises up in irritation with this untimely telemarketer, but your sense of self may not have been there a moment before. You might have been engaged, and that's why you're irritated, because you're engaged in a timeless, present conversation with somebody, or you're reading, or whatever, but you're in kind of like this timeless space, and the telemarketer rings, and you rise up, me rises up, and the mind starts cussing. And no matter how you deal with it, whether you just slam it, or cuss them out, or go try to find a way to get the telemarketers cut off, or whatever you do, you see, what we're interested in is the rise of me when it is rubbed by the world, and the world does not fit what it thinks it ought to be, because the irritation with the telemarketer comes up because the telemarketer should not be. This should not be. And immediately I separate. So immediately when you say this should not be, me has just separated from life and stands outside of it. This should not be. But that's insane, because life is what it is. You see what I mean? It's kind of like an insane, but we're conditioned to do it. You know, but it's kind of an insane position to say, and when I say this should not be, the telemarketer is the whole cosmos that has personified itself as a telemarketer. The telemarketer is not an isolated little bug. The telemarketer is part of the whole fabric of the cosmos that has manifested just for me. So that's kind of like a way or anything in the world that irritates me or praises me or whatever, that if you get, and you can watch me too, somebody says you get on Facebook and you get a like, there's a little bit of a me that says, oh boy, I got a like. Very subtle, but you can notice it. We like to be ego, like me likes to be liked, and me doesn't like to be rejected. You know, so this can be very subtle, or it can be a panic attack. you know, it can go up, explode, into a Trump. which is a good manifestation of a me who doesn't like to be criticized. So anyway, so this whole practice here is giving up what's most valuable, and that's me. You see, me is the whole package. Yeah.
So when the irritation happens, what is the best way to deal with it and not get engaged in it?
Not do anything. No dealing.
I know, but it's
So here's what I do. I mean, this happens to me, it just happened a little while ago. Or maybe it did, but it's always, I guess it's all the time. So I pull it out and I either turn the thing off and I put it back.
Right.
And I put it back, but it makes no imprint.
Like the telemarketers is such a thing, I don't even get irritated with it.
Yeah.
But there are situations like family members or something, which is like constantly in your face.
Right.
And can get, it is not us who get irritated, it is them, because you can see everybody
Right.
getting irritated. So then it's a real situation. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, we've had this thing.
I know we did.
You're still plagued by this telemarketer. Okay, so what we're, see, there's really nothing you can do because the only thing that does anything is me. Me is personal will. So I've got to fix it or I've got to leave it. Well, if it's family, it's hard to leave it and then you can't fix it. So Eckhart Tolle says, if you can't leave it, you can't fix it, you have to accept it. Anything else is madness. So how do you accept the family rubbing you? Is that you have to accept yourself. So the me rises up when it's rubbed, and obviously they do it, and that's what they happen, and it's no fault. It's just what they do. So if this is what they do, your practice is to notice not what they're doing to me, but the me that rises up when they do it. So if you notice the me, if you don't notice the me is noticing them. If you notice the me, then you're noticing them and me, and you put the two opposites together. See? You put the warm and the, I'm cool, they're hot, hot, cool, back and forth, put them together. To put them together is awareness, or stillness, or timeless presence. Timeless presence puts them together because timeless presence is not in time, and the me is in time. So the now, the present moment, is timeless. But we live in a mind whose operating system is time. But we live in a culture that says only time exists. The timeless presence doesn't exist. Only time exists. That we can make stuff to make the world better. That's in time. See? This timeless says there's nothing I can do to make myself better than it is right now. That's one of the things in the Yoga Nidra. To meditate on that. There's nothing I can do, nothing I can know that will make me more present and better than I am right now. Yet, there's still things to know and things to do. You see? So you can work with the family. Doesn't mean you just become a doormat. I mean, you can work with them, but you work with them from here rather than from here. If you work from here, what you do will be possibly more creative instead of reactive, because me reacts. Yeah.
I doubt Mr. Trump meditates, but I'm wondering if he had responded to Mr. Khan with a more empathetic response, how his week would have gone, as opposed to how it has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it really is building up a firestorm, because when you get the veterans angry at you,
It's so good on so many levels.
you really tapped into a shitstorm. But he really, if you look at Trump, basically he is a divine being in the sense that that he has, the American immature ego has manifested in the presence of this Trump, you see, as if he were a god. I mean, he's like a negative god. You know, like in India would be Ravana.
Yeah.
You know, Indian mythology always is full of these gods who have accumulated power through disciplines of yoga, and they've gotten stronger than the gods themselves, and they become like this horrible, ravenous dictator of the world. And the gods have to go to Brahma and say, would you come and fix this or something? Well, Brahma can't undo the power of the yogi, but he will always come up with some kind of a trick that defeats him. He can't take away the powers, but he will always come up with some kind of way to make the ego fall.
I have a situation that maybe will help.
Okay.
I live with my daughter, and when I lived with her and her husband, she used to ask me a question about something in the house, and I would say, well, I think it's water.
Right.
And then she would go to her husband and say, Mom thinks it's water, and he would say, no, it's sugar. And then, you know, well, he's divorced now and still live with my daughter, and now there's a new boyfriend. And so I noticed lately she came to me about some problem in the house. I'm Mr. Fix-It in the house. She came to me about a problem in the house, and I said, well, I think it's this. And then she came back to me a little later and said, well, he said it can't be that, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of brought up my awareness gene or whatever. And yesterday she said, my closet smells musty. And I went up and I smelled the closet. Well, it's right under where we've been working on a hive of bees up in the attic. And I said, well, maybe it's bees. I'll call the bee man. I didn't get that out of my mouth before she's calling him, and he says it's not the bees. And God, it was just like, why am I getting tangled up? Why am I doing this? And so it really was a timeless moment of like, duh, me.
Yeah.
And I have got a response now. I don't just hang up. I mean, you know, you can't.
Right.
So I didn't just hang up. I have now realized that she does that. She doesn't realize it causes rifts. She does that, and that's fine. That's her problem. But I have a response now every time that happens, and the response is, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
No, I don't know. That's my response.
That's all right. Listen, I'm glad you said that. Let's move that right there, because you bring up a whole new dimension here.
It's the highest level of knowledge.
How do we get to the tier of Kuan Yin, and how do we get to the blood of Jesus again? Connecting the blood of Jesus up with the timeless presence, and life is death and death is life. Okay, because if you put death and life and death together, you have timeless presence. If you separate them, you got time. I'm here, and death is there, I don't want to get there. See? Separate death from life, you create time. I'm here, death is there, I don't want to get there. So I'm going to do everything to get there. So I'll do everything not to bring death into life, which is where life is. But this does not mean I got to shoot myself. Please don't get that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's the fear of giving up is death. The fear of letting go. That's all death is. When you die, there's no fear. Fear is in time. So this whole idea then of connecting up the tears of Kuan Yin, the blood of Jesus, and I really thought it was neat that the little girl's name was Eden. Okay? And we talked about a few weeks ago the Garden of Eden and how we can't get back to it because they're the two cherubs of desire and fear guarding the day. So you can't get through unless you can get through desire and fear, you can't get back to the garden of the present moment. So the garden is timeless present. And, so it's always the Garden of Eden, but we're outside of it in a me. You see? Who's outside of the timeless present. We're connecting these up in the Garden of Eden. This also connects up in Buddhism. There's the idea of the other shore. So the monastic or the yogi or the spiritual aspirant is going to the other shore. But then when he gets to the other shore, he turns around and looks back, and there is no other shore. He was where he was. This is a favorite story. I got to get to the other shore, and if he ever gets there, he turns around and there was no water. He's standing where he began. I told you this story about the yogi master and the disciple, and they were walking along the river, and he said, Master, please tell me what Maya is, the illusion of Maya, the illusion of the world, the illusion of time. What does that mean? He says, oh, I'll tell you that, but first, would you give me some water? So, yes. So he goes and gets to a farmhouse, and wants some water, and there's a daughter, and the farmer says, I need help, and he stays to help the farmer, and he marries the daughter, and he has a family, and they got kids, and there's a heavy monsoon, and the river floods, and they got to cross the monsoon, and they all drown, and all the kids and the wife and the whole thing is gone, and he lands on the shore, and he looks up, and there's the master, says, where's my water? And that's the illusion of time. See? So we talked about this earlier today, how time runs, older we get, the faster, here it is, fall again and all that. Well, that's because we're closer to the timeless present. The closer we get to, this is the beauty of aging, is that the closer we get to the reality of our immortality, the closer we get to the blood of Jesus and the tears of Kuan, the less we feel time. So it's like we're not really feeling, when we're 10 years old, it's like, oh my God, you got, time is stretched out, So, so all these were connected dots. Now this was an interesting one here, and I just thought of this today. So we started talking about the British detective who was following the clues, okay, to get to the murderer. Right? And everybody else is following wrong clues or whatever. So the master detective is like a pit bull, it stays with the clues, okay? So what if the clues are the blood of Jesus? Right? So we're following the blood of Jesus to find out who killed him. You see? So we're like, well, who killed Jesus? Well, that's popular. Oh, well, the Jews did it. No, the Jews didn't, You killed Jesus. No, you didn't. So, but we're speaking metaphorically here. So who killed Jesus? Who did it? Well, the realization comes, this is heavy, the realization comes if you're following the blood of Jesus, which would be following the blood dropped by the murderer of Jesus. Okay, we're not following Jesus. In other words, somebody wounded Jesus, killed him, and he left a blood trail. So we got to follow the blood to find the murderer. So we come to the realization, the other shore, when we see that I did it.
Me?
Yeah. I killed the blood. I killed Jesus because I won't give up my body, my mind, my thinking, and my memory. I won't give it up. All right. But then you say, but just saying I did it is just half of the pair of opposites, because I didn't do it. I mean, I have good intentions. You see, I'm not a murderer. I have good intentions. I'm a good person. So basically, when you put the two together, guilt and innocence, you get guilty/innocent. Now this is ambiguous. It's not one or the other. I'm not guilty although I am guilty, and I'm not innocent, and I am innocent, although I'm still guilty. I still don't give up the body, the mind, thinking, and memory. So I'm guilty. But I have good intentions, you see. So which am I? Well, that's getting back to the yoga nidra, the warm feeling and the cool feeling, the anger and the peace, the pairs of opposites. Put them together. Put them together. When I put guilty and innocent together, something happens that cannot happen when we separate them. Because we separate them, we either got to choose one or the other. Either I'm a bad person or I'm a good person and you're accusing me of something I didn't do. You know, we either choose one or the other. But we don't say, I did it. Yet I didn't do it. In other words, see, this is not logical. How can you do something and not do it? But when you get at this level of understanding, this is true because we're connecting this back up to here. Yes, I didn't give up my body. I'm still thinking about it. You see, I didn't give up my thinking because it's me and I'm not giving up me because I don't believe there's anything there if I give it up. You see, so I'm afraid to give up me because I have no faith that there's anything there. So basically this is the realization of the other shore when the two opposites come together and you realize that each of us is guilty for all of the turning away from the present moment of humanity. In other words, we're not like little, each one of us like a little marble, although we are a little marble in the big screen. We're all, each of us also is the whole show. We are the whole cosmos personified as us, as separate beings. So we are separate beings, but we are one. So that, again, is another pair of opposites. We are all one mind and self, yet we're many. So you can't say one or the other. If I say, well, if I'm one, well, then I fall into the illusion, the delusion of an ego infatuation. I say I'm God, and you all come and be my, you know, and I'm out collect disciples now because I'm going to save the world. You know, but that's an ego infatuation because now I believe I'm God, I'm the one. Or you go the other choice and say I'm just a piece of the many. Well, then I have no meaning that aligns me with the whole. You see, I'm just like a separate, alone little piece of crap. You know, that's going to die. There's no meaning. You see? So yeah.
So, since we eat pluribus unum out of the many one,
Yeah.
would be a good,
Yeah.
would probably be a better motto than in God we trust necessarily.
Yeah, well, probably the same, pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, but this whole, you know, these,
Eat pluribus unum out of the many one.
you see, this gets back, you know, you know, this, you know, I try to connect these dots. In our democracy, the Constitution, and the way that our nation is framed is just what you said there. Out of the one, many, or the many make the one, or the one make many. That's what this idea is here is. I'm the whole of human. I'm the Son of Man, which is all mankind, but I'm an individual person. So I'm an individual, but then I'm not just an individual, I'm also the one. But you can't experience consciously the one because you can't select it out to see it. You can't see the one walking around. You see, you can't see the whole because we're in it. So you can't see, if you're a fish in a pond, you can't see the pond because you're in the pond. Or a fish in the fishbowl, you can see other fish and maybe you know yourself, but you can't see the fishbowl because you're not in it. I mean, you're in it, you see. So we can't see the one. So there has to be an inner sight or inner eye that opens up, that senses the one, while my opened eye sees myself as the many. Otherwise, I couldn't talk to anyone. You see, that'd be psychotic. You see, so this is the balance of the two opposites of the one and the many. If I'm the many, you see, I'm guilty of turning away from the one. See that? And the people say, well, what is sin? Well, it's turning away from God. And Christianity, that's a sin. They were turning away from God. You know, Satan did it, the whole thing. In Buddhism, the original sin is ignorance. Ignorance. So I turn away from the Dharma or the one out of ignorance, not because of my nature, which is what we get mixed up in this Christianity with the fallen nature. You know, you're sinful by nature, so you have to have somebody to come in and save you. You can't do it. You know, so it really says by ignorance, it frees you from the stain of sin and allows you to say, well, I'm just not seeing correctly. I'm misperceiving. Misperceiving is through time. Seeing correctly is timeless presence. You see. So this whole idea then of the one and the many is ambiguous. It's not logical. And it's not conscious. You can't consciously do that. Like he said, with your mind, you can't hold the two opposites together. You have to let go of the mind. And you can't let go of the mind by willpower, because the will is the mind. So the mind can't let go of itself. So there has to be, what I found is that the spiritual path is somehow, some way, I don't know how, and you all are here, so there is an awakening of this, what in Buddhism is called Buddha nature, or Christ nature, or awareness, or the self, or whatever the one is, which has no name. This is awakening, and it wants to get to it. So it's turning away from time towards the timeless, which is the wisdom of aging. Because in the second half of life, you've done all this stupid stuff with me. You know, you've seen that it doesn't work out. You know, that's a false path, you know. And you've done it all. You've been to the amusement park. You've done the rides. You've paid your dues. So now is the time to turn away from me in attainment towards the one. And that one is not in time, but it's now. So we're always in the one. It's not like tomorrow. We're always in the one, but we perceive it as not being in it. So that's the ignorance of misperception. So you still see that you're not in it, but this other eye opens up where you sense that you are one, that you are at home, and that there is no place to go, because you're already there, you see. But at the same time, you've got things to do, places to go. So anyway, this kind of like gets down to who did it. Well, I did it. This gets back to the metaphor of Jesus, who takes the sin of the world, or basically he takes the blame. So what that means in the theology of Christianity is that Jesus takes everybody's blame. But the problem with Christianity, it says, well, he's the only one that did it. You can't do it. You see, you've got to let Jesus do it for you. And this teaching says, no, you do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. You see? So that compresses the whole thing. So Christ is not back there. Christ is timeless presence. So Christ is right now. And every time we turn to me, we crucify the timeless presence. So I'm guilty. See? But again, that doesn't get us anywhere, because that's just self-blame. And people, that's a mental state. Yeah, I'm no good, I did it. It's my fault. People that say they're sorry all the time. I have a few friends. Every time if you sit down and I move this over there, they're sitting there, they say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We know a lot of people like that. They're sorry all the time. They're mimicking Christ. I'm taking the blame of the world. I'm sorry, even though they didn't do anything. And then the opposite end of that is I didn't do it.
That's worse.
Yeah, right. I'm innocent, even though they got the hand in the cookie jar. See, that's Trump. You know, he'll say this and say, did you say that? No, I didn't do it. You know, so it's all there. The whole world is a metaphor for this teaching.
I just had a comment about the word blood.
Yeah.
I think the word blood symbolizes feeling. If you've ever heard that expression, there was bad blood between them.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, so feeling, so the blood of Jesus' blood or feeling was purified. He was pure love. So that could be in there too, a little bit. The right feeling is important. And there's also a quote, I think St. Paul said, resist unto blood. Resist unto right feeling.
Well, let's take that.
Feeling is all right.
Let's take that right and go back right here to Yoga Nidra. And then he gets in here, this particular meditation, he gets into, he says, feeling emotions, like people feel anger.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the way you practice is that is if you just had a snit with your neighbor and you got angry, you sit down to do this practice and you call up that feeling of anger, and then you connect, then you give up the memory. Now you give up the memory is that the neighbor caused the feeling. Now I just got this feeling, okay, and it's disconnected from memory, which is he did it. So there's no blame for the feeling, it's just a feeling, irritation or whatever. And then you find, well, what would it feel like if I forgave the guy? And then you go back with this feeling, and then you go back with that. And so you're disconnecting the feeling from its story, which is the reference of the feeling to the past. See, the neighbor hurt you in the past, now it's past. So I see him walking down the street and the feeling comes up. The meaning of that feeling is reference to the past. I have no idea who this guy is. You see? But I know who he is because I'm referencing it to a pain he gave me that has not been forgiven. You see? So that whole idea then of accepting my feeling as feeling, whatever it is, whether it's a guilty feeling or anger or whatever it is, if I just accept it as it is, a feeling, then something new happens. Because I've just liberated the feeling from the past and the judgment. So I liberate, see, whenever I do that, I have put myself in the judgment. So now I'm experiencing the pain of separation from the whole of humanity by singling out that guy as my enemy. You see? But from the position of the one, we're all one. So love your enemy. But from the position of me, well, I still got to deal with this guy. You see? But from the timeless position, there is no problem. So when we look at our feeling from a timeless position, the feeling is cut off from the past in history, and it's life. The feeling is life. Feeling is now. Feeling is our life. I am this feeling. But if I don't cut it off from the memory, then I'm saying this feeling should not be here. You see what I mean? So if I'm angry at my neighbor and I'm a good Christian, I'm innocent, and I got this anger, and then so the anger comes up and he did it, and then I'm angry at myself for having a feeling that doesn't validate my innocence. See? So now I'm double biting myself. He bit me and I'm biting myself. So what I'm doing actually, you see, in that process is separating myself from myself. I'm angry at my feeling. I don't like this feeling I'm having. which is the same as I don't like my neighbor for giving me this feeling, and I'm blaming it on him, and now I'm blaming the feeling on me. But there's no meaning in the feeling, it's just a feeling. You see? So if we can see that, we stop connecting all our feelings up to some reference in what's the end, the whole thing, is all just not accepting a feeling as a feeling, which is basically what this is all about. Oh, you got anything else? Thank you for bringing that up. That really tied it. I think it really helped to tie the whole thing together, because it's not something that you learn or something that you read about. It's something that you have to do. So you just got to do Buddha. Or do Jesus, whatever. Yeah, it is. It's not, that's why they call it a practice. It's just what you do. Without any end in sight. There's no, I just got to do it for 30 days. Say, how long do I have to do this?
40 days.
40 days, right.
When,
You've got to show your...
I don't mean to say I'm in the matrix or anything, I don't know, I never have figured that out, but when people say all this is an illusion, is that referring to that all there is timeless presence as opposed to time?
See that? Yeah, all right, I'm glad you brought that up. So that's the ambiguity. So reality is ambiguous. It's not logical. Logic means everything is separated into its own name. There's an eraser, there's a table, there's a CD. You see, everything has a name, everything is separate. Logic can't put them together. This is Aristotelian logic. It's the way thinking works. A is A cannot be not A at the same time. You see? But there is a logic of ambiguity, or mystical logic, or the logic of art, or the logic of poetry. Poetry puts stuff together all the time. But it's a metaphorical language. So you have to understand that the meaning of life can only be understood with this metaphorical language and not the logic of science and biology and all of that. You see, that has its place, but it's worthless in understanding who I am and how I get to timeless presence. So the idea there, I forgot what the idea was. The illusion, okay, the illusion is, this is very hard for people to understand, because people go, everything in logic is going to be framed either this or that. Okay, this is choice. Okay, you got to choose this or that, or one among many, or whatever. But you can't have your cake and eat it at the same time, as the old saying. So you can't choose this and choose that as one. You got to choose this or that. So that's the whole process of choice, is that. So then we say, well, what does illusion mean? In Buddhism, the word emptiness comes up a lot. Form, that is stuff, is empty. Now what that means is that form is empty of its definition. The definition, this is an eraser or a marker, separates it from the rest. But if I melted it down, then all the plastic in this room, you could melt down into plastic. So you could say this is plastic. And it would be the same as any other plastic, you see. But as soon as I make it into this and named it and said that this is this and this only, that's real. But at the same time, that is not what it is. It's also plastic.
So by defining things, we create the illusion.
That's the illusion. The appearance. In other words, we feel like when we're conditioned this, is that when we name something, that's what it is. You see? But that's just what we name it. Now, MacGyver, I think that's coming back, that
It
TV
is,
show.
it is, you know, that's kind of.
So he was in a timeless present because when he was in a fix, he would use anything. He didn't care what it was named. The fundamentalist says you can't use this for a shovel. You can't use this as a stick to get you out of a hole. This is a marker. You can only use this to mark on the board. You can't use it to dig up something because it changes name. You see? So you can't change the name of anything. All the names are written in stone. God named everything. Adam named everything. That's it. That's creationism. No evolution. Things don't change their names. Things don't change their form. Everything is set. And that's a way people, we see the world. It's secure. I'm set. My me is set. Everything is set forever. Any kind of evolution comes along, you get earthquakes. Wait a minute, what do you mean that's not a marker? You see, that threatens my world if you say this is but anyway, so that whole idea, it's the appearance is the names, name and form that we give reality and then believe that exists as itself, you see. And the teaching of Buddha is that everything is interconnected. So it's more like a net of interconnectedness that is impermanent. So it's everything is changing. Things don't change. Things are changed. So things just are things for a little while. A piece of wood, is a piece of wood for a little while, and then it becomes ash. And then the ash becomes dirt. Where did the piece of wood go? You see? So we get locked into the appearance of the world because of our self that sees everything in time. You see, and we can't penetrate the appearance. So when we're locked into the appearance of how things are, my daughter's this way and she'll never change, whatever the appearance we believe is real, if we get locked into that, we stop time, we stop the timeless presence and hold everything like an ice cube. We stop time and freeze it. Everything is in freeze frame of my appearance, the way I believe everything is, you see. And that becomes the pain of life because life has moved on and we see it as being stuck in this particular posture. So the gap increases between life moving and my posture in life. And the greater the gap between life, which is timeless presence, and my posture, the greater my suffering. And it finally reaches the point where I crash. Nervous breakdown, whatever, drugs, whatever, because I can't stand the pain of the distance between my posture and life that has moved on. Now we get into politics. You see, the Republican view of the world is something that is a posture. And the American society has moved on, and the Republicans are stuck in that yesterday. We got to restore yesterday. So, you can see all out there. So,
I just think it's a learning that the person who church Trump up was a Muslim.
I do too. Yeah, the final.
What did you say?
The one everybody's been trying to trip up Trump since he started. And the one guy that did it was a Muslim.
God bless him.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
it's Kuan Yin.
And really, and there's rumors, but I think there's a lot of whispering, that Trump will probably look for an exit. Just, because he's not going to be a loser. He's not going to lose
I
face.
wonder about that too.
Yeah.
He's not going to lose face, which is reputation, his name. Remember his name and form? I named myself Trump. Okay? So he's not going to tarnish that in any way he can. So he will find some way. It's a rigged election. the GOP is not for me, they're not helping me, I'm going to quit.
That's really scary when you think about it. That to not, I'm not a Trump person by any means, but to not have the Republican Party there or someone representing them.
Yeah, he doesn't have any money either.
What is it?
He's having to ask him for money. Well, he's not
What's
financing
next?
this thing.
Well, that's the beauty of it too, right?
You-
I mean, everything lives and dies,
Well, look
including the
back,
Republican.
well, look back at this, you know, so now, here's the way the opposites work. Okay, is Trump guilty or innocent? Or is he good or bad? All right, so right now, he's the devil, but if we go along in time and look back, and Trump was the caused the breakup of the GOP
Yeah.
worldview of movement conservative and the trickle down in all of the cultural values and the war on people and the whole thing, if all of that thing crashes, because Trump left the party and personified the emotions of the party that they have been communicating under the table, you know, the fear and all that, and he personified it as a yogi gone mad or a titan or Ravana, you know, and then he crashes and he takes the whole party with him, and then the Republican Party has to reinvent itself more in tune with the nation that it's a part of, you see. We'll look back and say Trump was the best thing that ever happened.
I can already say
See
that.
that? You know, so it really, you know, so he's both the worst thing that ever happened and the best thing that ever happened. And that's the beginning of the Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times and the worst of times. Let's quit. Thank you very much.
You're gonna leave us hanging?
I'm gonna do the
yeah, the
It's
quilt.
no big deal. It's just,
Come up here.
I had a notion, I finished this last night, or the night before last, or sometime soon. And this is what I consider part of my charity work. We do charity work every month, blah, blah, blah. And this is for a group, not, well, I individually did it, but I mean, this is a group quilt. So this is a quilt that will be raffled and the money will be used for this. So, here, if you'll hold it up. Now, the point I wanted to make with this was, usually when I'm doing charity work, I just run through it, frankly. Just drive that machine right through it. But I had seen recently this male quilter, and he's had a horrible experience lately where he needed a kidney transplant. And, you know, he's very sick and so on. And he got this notion from another woman I've taken classes with. And I know you wanted to make another point, so I'll keep that.
No, go what?
But he was on a show I was watching. He was talking about slow quilting, and all he meant was meditative quilting.
Right.
But he didn't say it that way. So it's a new movement in the quilt groups is slow quilting, and all it means is to focus on what you're doing or to meditate while you're doing it.
Just do that.
And when you're quilting, quilt.
Right.
And so I said, instead of rushing through this and getting it out, as I do with so many of my charity work things, I will do it meditatively. And it's so much more satisfying, you know, to do it that way. You get a lot more out of it than that. So that's all. The point I was going to make is all this shows up in everyday life.
You need to cut that.
And, I do. That's later. And it shows up in so many different ways.
Well, just to connect that up to the top then, when you quilt and you just do quilting and you don't think about yesterday and tomorrow and all that, you're practicing yoga nidra. You give your mind, your thinking, and your memory up to the quilting. And it's not easy because the mind wants to come in. So you come back to the quilting. So you're really practicing timeless presence.
Yeah.
Because when you're just doing what is, it doesn't make any difference if you're washing dishes or combing the dog or sitting on the back porch or whatever. You can practice timeless presence if you just do what you're doing and you're not doing something that you're not thinking about something else while you're doing it.
It's so
You
true.
see?
Another thing you were saying, though, that I wanted to bring out, if you're not going to do it, wait, hold it up just a minute
Okay.
more. If you get right up here on this cranberry
Uh-huh.
block, what you see is the cranberry block, which is a totally different experience than seeing the whole quilt, which is the
Oh.
point you were making before.
Yeah.
When you stand back, you see the whole thing.
Right.
How long does that take you? And then how
Oh,
long does
that's the
it take
first
you?
question. As long as it takes. It's
Well, that
fine.
is a great, at that point, we can't get out of here, but that point right there is what we've been talking about all along. So that if I focus on just the square, I'm using my selective consciousness, which is in time, but if I zoom back and see the whole quilt, I'm zooming back into the whole, or timeless presence. In other words, we spend our conscious minds thinking about this or that, and it should be better, and who caused it, and includes me, you know, the whole thing. But when we drop that, then we pull back and we're seeing the whole of reality, which includes me, which is the whole quilt. So that was a good metaphor.
Listen, I have another good metaphor. I've changed the name of this course to Ned Talks instead of TED Talks.
To Ed Talks or TED?
No, instead of TED Talks, these
Right.
are Ed Talks
Ed
instead of
Talks.
spiritual whatever.
Well, that's what on my website,
People
that's
say,
where I
well, what
list
is
them
that
all.
class? I said, I don't know, spiritual something or blah, blah, blah.
Well, I changed the name for next session is going to be The Art of Aging.
Oh, good to know. I got that down.
Okay?
I like that.
So it's going to be the same, I don't know how it's going to come out, but the whole thing about
It's
the
okay.
Buddha, when he goes out and sees old age, sickness, and
Okay,
death, and says, I want to get through that, he found the art of aging. Okay.
Oh, I have some sweet story.
Oh,
It's not from India.
It's a Civil War
You like
fabrics that were
Oh, yes.
donated, so.
big?
Oh, figs, I love figs. Okay,
I had gone to North Carolina and they had a farm.
thank you,
And I
thank you.
didn't pick up,
When I'm from Louisiana, when you buy a new house, you plant 2 trees, and one's a big